The dust hadn't settled yet. Concrete fragments tumbled down the fractured hillside like broken teeth, clattering against twisted rebar and shattered glass. The air tasted metallic, blood and rust and pulverized stone. Somewhere beneath the rubble, something was still shifting, something alive. Captain Ryan Mercer dropped to his knees beside the collapsed parking structure, his gloved hands hovering over a gap between two concrete slabs. His breath came short and shallow. Beside him, his search and rescue dog, a German shepherd named Copper, had stopped obeying commands entirely. The dog's paws moved with frantic precision, scraping away gravel and dust. His nose pressed so close to the debris that his whiskers bent against the stone. His ears pinned back, his body trembled. Ryan had trained Copper for 6 years. He knew every signal, every posture, every sound the dog made. But this was different. Copper wasn't searching. He was desperate. The radio on Ryan's belt crackled. "Mercer, we need you at Sector 4. We've got confirmed survivors near the elementary school." Ryan didn't answer. He couldn't. Because at that moment, Copper let out a sound he had never made before, a low, guttural whine that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than his chest. And then the dog did something that made Ryan's blood run cold. Copper turned his head, looked directly into Ryan's eyes, and barked once. Not at the rubble, at him. Ryan's hand froze on the radio. "Copper, what did you find?" The dog didn't wait for permission. He lunged forward, claws scraping against stone, digging deeper into the narrow crevice. Dust billowed up in clouds. Ryan's pulse hammered in his ears. He leaned closer, peering into the darkness, and then he saw it. A hand, small, pale, motionless. But what he uncovered beneath it wasn't what anyone expected. 48 hours earlier, the morning had been perfect. Ryan Mercer stood in the equipment bay of Station 19, running his hands over the straps of Copper's search vest, checking each buckle, each reflective strip, each pocket that held emergency supplies. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of coffee drifted from the break room. Outside, the city of Riverside stretched out under a cloudless sky, the kind of blue that made you forget earthquakes were even possible. Copper sat at attention, his amber eyes locked on Ryan's face, tail sweeping slowly across the polished concrete floor. The dog's coat gleamed under the lights, deep rust and black, muscles coiled beneath the fur, every inch of him built for endurance and focus. "Good boy," Ryan murmured, scratching behind Copper's ear. The dog leaned into his hand, eyes half closing in contentment. Ryan had been a firefighter for 12 years. He'd pulled people from burning buildings, cut them free from mangled cars, talked them down from ledges. But nothing compared to working with Copper. The dog wasn't just a tool. He was a partner, a brother. They'd been through fire academy together, through certification courses, through sleepless nights and impossible rescues. Copper had found a missing child buried under snow. He'd located an elderly man trapped in a collapsed barn. He'd alerted Ryan to a gas leak that would have killed an entire family. The dog didn't just save lives, he understood them. "Ready for drills?" Ryan asked, clipping the vest into place. Copper's ears perked forward. His tail began to wag in earnest. Ryan smiled. "Yeah, I thought so." They walked out into the training yard, where the rest of the crew was setting up the day's scenarios. Captain Elena Vasquez stood near the practice rubble pile, clipboard in hand, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She glanced up as Ryan approached. "Mercer, Copper." She nodded at both of them. "We're running live buried scenarios today. I want response times under 3 minutes." "Copy that," Ryan said. Copper's nose was already working, scanning the air, cataloging scents. His entire body quivered with anticipation. The drills went flawlessly. Copper located every hidden volunteer within 2 minutes, his signals clear and unmistakable. When he found someone, he would bark twice, sit, and maintain eye contact with Ryan until the handler acknowledged. Textbook. Perfect. By noon, the sun was high and hot. Ryan poured water into Copper's collapsible bowl, watching as the dog lapped it up, tongue pink and dripping. The day felt lazy, routine, safe. That was when the ground moved. At first, it was just a tremor, a vibration so faint Ryan thought it was a truck passing on the highway. But then the water in Copper's bowl rippled. The flagpole began to sway. The windows of the station rattled in their frames. Ryan's stomach dropped. "Earthquake!" someone shouted. The shaking intensified. Not violent, not catastrophic, but unmistakable. The world tilted slightly, like the earth itself was shrugging. Copper's ears flattened. He pressed against Ryan's leg, a low whine escaping his throat. "It's okay, buddy," Ryan whispered, dropping to one knee, wrapping an arm around the dog's chest. "It's okay." The tremor lasted 15 seconds, then it stopped. Silence fell over the yard. The crew exchanged glances, uneasy but unhurt. Captain Vasquez was already on her radio, her voice clipped and professional. "All units, report status. Riverside Station 19 is secure. Standing by for dispatch." Ryan's hand rested on Copper's back, feeling the rapid thump of the dog's heartbeat. Copper's nose twitched, lifting toward the horizon, as if he could smell something Ryan couldn't. The radio crackled. "All units, this is dispatch. Magnitude 6.1 earthquake confirmed. Epicenter located 12 miles northeast of Riverside. Multiple structure collapses reported. Initiating emergency response protocol. Search and rescue teams, prepare for deployment." Ryan's chest tightened. He looked down at Copper. The dog was already staring at him, ears forward, body tense. "Looks like we're up," Ryan said quietly. Copper's tail gave a single deliberate wag. Within 20 minutes, they were loaded into the rescue truck, gear secured, heading toward the disaster zone. The city looked different now. Traffic lights swinging on damaged wires, cracked pavement, debris scattered across sidewalks. People stood in doorways, faces pale, phones pressed to their ears. Ryan watched through the window, his hand resting on Copper's head. The dog sat perfectly still, his eyes fixed forward, as if he could already see what waited for them. The truck turned a corner, and the devastation came into full view. An entire block had been transformed. Buildings leaned at impossible angles. Cars were crushed beneath fallen masonry. A water main had burst, sending a geyser into the air. The sound was overwhelming. Sirens, shouting, the groan of stressed metal. "Jesus," someone whispered from the back of the truck. Captain Vasquez's voice cut through the chaos. "Listen up. We're dividing into 3 teams. Mercer and Copper, you're with me on the apartment complex. Martinez, you take the shopping plaza. Chen, the office building. We've got multiple casualties confirmed, unknown number still trapped. Move fast, stay smart, and watch each other's backs." The truck stopped. Doors flew open. The team spilled out onto the street. Ryan clipped Copper's lead, gave the command to heel, and followed Vasquez toward the apartment complex. The first scene they arrived at was a 3-story apartment complex on the west side of town. The building hadn't collapsed entirely, but the center section had buckled inward, creating a jagged wound in the facade. Windows gaped like empty eye sockets. Dust hung in the air like fog. Ryan and Copper were part of a 6-person team. Captain Vasquez coordinated from the command post, while Ryan and 2 other handlers worked the debris field. Copper moved with purpose, nose low, tail straight, every muscle engaged. They cleared the exterior quickly. No hits, no survivors trapped on the surface. "We're moving inside," Ryan radioed. Copper's got the lead. The interior was a maze of tilted hallways and cracked drywall. Furniture lay overturned. Family photos hung crooked on the walls. The smell was overwhelming. Plaster dust, mildew, something faintly sweet and rotten. Copper's nose worked constantly, filtering through the chaos of scents. Ryan followed close, his flashlight cutting through the dimness, his boots crunching over broken glass. They checked 3 apartments, empty, evacuated. Then Copper stopped. His body went rigid, his ears swiveled forward. His nose pointed toward a doorway at the end of the hall, a door that had been blown off its hinges and now leaned against the wall at an angle. Ryan's pulse quickened. "Copper, search." The dog moved forward, slow and deliberate, every step calculated. He reached the doorway, paused, then stepped inside. Ryan followed. The apartment was dark. The windows had shattered, letting in thin shafts of dusty light. Furniture was overturned. A child's toys lay scattered across the floor. Plastic blocks, a stuffed bear, a red ball. Copper's nose dropped to the floor. He sniffed once, twice. Then he sat. Ryan's breath caught. "Good boy. Stay." He keyed his radio. "Vasquez, I've got a hit. North wing, 3rd floor, apartment 3C. Copy. Backup en route." Ryan swept his flashlight across the room. No visible bodies, no sounds. But Copper didn't make mistakes. "Copper, show me." The dog rose, moved toward a collapsed bookshelf near the far wall. He pawed at the debris, whined, then looked back at Ryan. Ryan dropped to his knees, pulling away broken shelves, scattered books, a toppled lamp. His fingers brushed against something soft, fabric. He pulled harder. A blanket, then a small shoulder. A child. Ryan's heart slammed against his ribs. He cleared the debris carefully, his hands shaking now. The child was small, maybe 7 or 8, eyes closed, skin pale. Ryan pressed 2 fingers to the child's neck, pulse faint, but there. "I've got a survivor!" Ryan shouted into his radio. "Child unconscious, breathing shallow. I need paramedics now." Copper sat beside the child, his nose inches from the small face, his body still and watchful. Ryan worked quickly, stabilizing the child's head, checking for injuries. The paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing in with a stretcher and equipment. They lifted the child carefully, strapping the small body in place. "Good work, Mercer," one of the medics said as they carried the stretcher out. "That dog's a miracle." Ryan watched them go, his chest tight with relief. Copper stood beside him, tail wagging slowly. "Yeah," Ryan whispered, scratching the dog's head. "Yeah, you are." But as they left the apartment, something nagged at the back of Ryan's mind. The way Copper had moved, the way he'd paused at the doorway, the way he'd looked at Ryan before entering. It wasn't his usual behavior. It was cautious, almost hesitant, as if the dog had known something Ryan didn't. They continued clearing the building floor by floor. Each apartment told a story. Abandoned meals on tables, clothes scattered across beds, lives interrupted mid-moment. Some units were empty. Others showed signs of hasty evacuation, doors left open, belongings abandoned. In one apartment, they found an elderly man sitting in his armchair, confused but unharmed, refusing to leave without his cat. Ryan searched 3 rooms before Copper located the animal hiding under a bed. The man cried when Ryan placed the cat in his arms. In another unit, they discovered a young couple trapped in their bathroom after the doorframe had warped shut. Ryan had to use a crowbar to pry it open. They stumbled out, shaken but grateful, clinging to each other. Hour after hour, the work continued. Copper never faltered. His nose remained sharp, his focus absolute. But Ryan noticed subtle changes, the way the dog's ears would flatten slightly when they entered certain spaces, the hesitation before moving through doorways, the constant checking back to make sure Ryan was close. It was as if Copper could sense something beneath the surface, some invisible danger that Ryan's human senses couldn't detect. By late afternoon, they'd cleared the entire complex. 12 survivors found, 3 casualties confirmed, the rest evacuated safely. Captain Vasquez met them outside, her face lined with exhaustion. "Good work, Mercer. Take 30, hydrate, feed your dog. We've got another site in an hour." Ryan nodded, leading Copper to the supply truck. He poured water into a bowl, watching as the dog drank deeply. Then he opened a bag of kibble, pouring it into a second bowl. Copper ate mechanically, his eyes distant. Ryan sat beside him, his own water bottle untouched. He studied the dog, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his ears kept swiveling toward distant sounds. "What is it, buddy?" Ryan asked softly. "What are you hearing?" Copper finished eating, then moved to sit beside Ryan, pressing his weight against the handler's leg. Ryan wrapped an arm around the dog's shoulders, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Around them, the rescue operation continued. Engines rumbled, radios crackled, people shouted instructions. But in that moment, sitting beside his dog, Ryan felt a strange calm settle over him. Whatever came next, they would face it together, always. By the second day, the scope of the disaster became clear. 6 buildings had sustained major damage. Dozens of families had been displaced. The death toll stood at 4, with 17 injured and 3 still missing. Ryan and Copper were assigned to a collapsed parking structure on the eastern edge of the city, a 5-level garage that had pancaked during the quake, trapping cars and possibly people beneath tons of concrete. The scene was chaos. Heavy machinery rumbled in the background. Engineers in hard hats shouted instructions. Dust clouds drifted across the site like smoke. Captain Vasquez gathered the search teams near the command tent. Her face was drawn, her voice tight. "We've got thermal imaging showing possible heat signatures on levels 2 and 3, she said, pointing to a schematic. "But the structure's unstable. We're working on shoring it up, but it's going to take time. I need confirmation before we commit resources. Mercer, you and Copper take the north quadrant. Martinez, you're on south. Stay sharp. If anything shifts, you get out. Understood?" "Understood," Ryan said. Copper stood at his side, ears forward, eyes locked on the rubble ahead. They approached the collapsed structure carefully. The concrete slabs had fallen at angles, creating narrow voids and pockets. Some were large enough to crawl into. Others were barely wide enough for Copper to squeeze through. The morning sun beat down mercilessly, turning the disaster site into an oven. Sweat dripped down Ryan's back, soaking through his uniform. The air shimmered with heat, making the rubble appear to waver and shift. Ryan gave the command. "Copper, search." The dog moved forward, nose working, tail high. He picked his way over the debris with the grace of a mountain goat, his paws finding purchase on unstable surfaces, his body adjusting to every shift and creak. Ryan followed, his breath coming faster now, adrenaline sharpening his senses. Every step required careful calculation. The ground beneath them wasn't solid. It was a precarious arrangement of broken concrete, twisted metal, and empty space. One wrong move could trigger a collapse. They worked methodically, clearing section by section. Copper investigated every crevice, every shadow, every gap. His nose twitched constantly, filtering through layers of scent, oil, rubber, concrete dust, decay. The work was exhausting, physical and mental. Ryan had to constantly assess risk, judge stability, decide whether to push forward or pull back. And through it all, he had to trust Copper's instincts as much as his own. 30 minutes in, Copper stopped. His body went rigid. His ears pinned back, his tail dropped. Ryan's stomach clenched. "Copper?" The dog didn't move. He was staring at a narrow gap between two concrete slabs, his nose inches from the darkness. "What do you got, buddy?" Copper didn't sit, didn't bark. He just stood there, frozen. Ryan dropped to his knees, shining his flashlight into the gap. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating twisted rebar, shattered glass, a crushed car door, and then he saw it. A hand, pale, small, fingers curled inward. Ryan's breath stopped. "I've got a visual," he radioed, his voice tight. "North Quadrant, Section 3. Single victim, unresponsive. I need heavy equipment and paramedics standing by." "Copy. On our way." Ryan leaned closer, trying to get a better look. The hand was partially buried under rubble. He couldn't see the rest of the body, couldn't tell if it was a child or an adult, male or female, but something about the scene felt wrong. The hand was too clean. No blood, no dirt, just pale skin and curled fingers. Ryan's instincts screamed at him. Something wasn't right. He looked at Copper. The dog was trembling now, his entire body tense, his eyes locked on the gap. "Copper, what is it?" The dog whined. A soft, broken sound that Ryan had only heard once before, years ago when they'd found a victim who hadn't survived. Ryan reached into the gap, his gloved fingers brushing against the hand. It was cold, stiff. He pulled gently, clearing away debris, revealing more of the arm. A wrist, a forearm, and then he saw the sleeve. It was torn, stained, but the fabric was unmistakable. A firefighter's jacket. Ryan's heart stopped. Oh God. He pulled harder, his hands shaking now, clearing away more rubble, uncovering the shoulder, the chest, the face. The victim was a firefighter, a woman. Her helmet was gone. Her face was pale, streaked with dust and blood. Her eyes were closed. Ryan didn't recognize her immediately, but he recognized the patch on her jacket. Station 19, his station. "No," Ryan whispered. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Her skin was cold. She'd been dead for hours. Ryan's chest tightened, his vision blurred. He pulled his hand back, breath coming in short gasps, and then recognition hit him like a physical blow. Sarah Chen. She'd joined the department 3 years ago, quiet, dedicated. She'd been training her own search dog, a border collie named Scout. Ryan's throat closed. He looked around frantically, his flashlight beam sweeping across the rubble. "Sarah's dog," he whispered. "Where's Scout?" Copper pressed against his leg, whining softly. Ryan's flashlight found what he'd been dreading, a second body, smaller, covered in black and white fur. Scout lay partially buried, his body twisted at an unnatural angle. His eyes were open, glassy and empty. One paw was extended, as if he'd been trying to reach his handler. Ryan's hand found Copper's head, fingers tangling in the thick fur. The dog leaned into him, solid and warm and alive. Sarah had died trying to protect her dog, and Scout had died trying to reach her. Ryan sat back on his heels, struggling to breathe. The scene blurred through his tears. He thought about Sarah, her quiet smile, the way she'd light up when talking about Scout, her dedication to the work. Gone. Both of them gone. "I'm sorry," Ryan whispered to the bodies. "I'm so sorry." Copper nudged his hand, drawing his attention back to the present. Ryan wiped his eyes, trying to focus. He needed to call this in, needed to mark the location for recovery, needed to... Copper barked, sharp, insistent. Ryan's head snapped up. What? The dog was staring at something else, a third gap in the rubble, deeper and darker than the others. And from that darkness came a sound, faint, fragile, a voice. Help! Ryan's entire world tilted. Someone was alive down there. Ryan froze, every nerve in his body suddenly electric with focus. Did you hear that? Copper's ears swiveled forward. His body went rigid again, but this time his tail lifted slightly. His nose pointed toward the darkness, and he barked again. 2 sharp signals. The search alert. Ryan dropped to his knees, pressing his ear to the gap. He held his breath, straining to hear past the rumble of machinery, the shouts of workers, the pounding of his own heart. There it was again, a voice. Weak, muffled, but unmistakably human. Help! Please! Ryan's pulse exploded. He keyed his radio, his voice sharp and urgent. I've got a live victim, North Quadrant, Section 3, deep in the structure. I need heavy equipment now. Copy. Equipment is 20 minutes out. I don't have 20 minutes. Ryan looked at Copper. The dog was already moving, squeezing into the gap, his body twisting and contorting to fit through the narrow space. Copper, wait! But the dog didn't stop. His training overrode everything else. Someone needed help. That was all that mattered. He disappeared into the darkness, his body swallowed by shadow. Ryan's heart hammered. He shone his flashlight into the gap, but the beam couldn't penetrate deep enough. He could hear Copper moving, his claws scraping against stone, his breath coming fast. And then silence. Copper! Ryan shouted, his voice cracking. No response. Terror gripped Ryan's chest. The structure was unstable. Every movement could trigger a collapse. If Copper got trapped, if something shifted. A bark, distant but clear. 2 sharp sounds echoing from deep within the rubble. Ryan's body moved before his mind caught up. He dropped to his stomach, pulling himself into the gap, dragging his body over broken concrete and twisted metal. His jacket caught on rebar, his helmet scraped against stone. The walls pressed in on all sides, the darkness absolute. He could barely breathe. The space was too tight, too confined. Claustrophobia clawed at his throat. But Copper was in there, and someone was alive. Ryan pushed forward, ignoring the pain in his ribs, the scrape of stone against his skin. His flashlight beam bounced wildly, illuminating brief snapshots, fractured concrete, dangling wires, pools of standing water. The gap widened slightly, opening into a small pocket, a void created by the way the concrete slabs had fallen. The space was maybe 6 feet across, 4 feet high, barely enough room to crouch. His flashlight beam swept across the space, and there, in the corner, was Copper. The dog sat beside a figure, a woman, middle-aged, her face streaked with blood and dust. She was pinned under a concrete slab, her legs trapped, her breathing shallow and labored, but she was alive. Her eyes fluttered open as Ryan's light found her face. Her lips moved, barely forming words. Please. Ryan crawled closer, his hands already assessing the situation. The slab was massive, easily several hundred pounds. He couldn't move it alone, but he could stabilize her, keep her talking, keep her alive, until help arrived. I'm Ryan. I'm with the fire department. You're going to be okay. What's your name? The woman's lips trembled. Diana Reeves. Okay, Diana. I need you to stay still. Can you feel your legs? She shook her head weakly. Can't feel anything. Ryan's chest tightened. Spinal injury, possibly severed. He needed to immobilize her immediately. Okay, that's okay. We're going to get you out of here. Diana's eyes filled with tears. My daughter. Ryan's blood ran cold. Your daughter. She's here. She was with me in the car, and I told her to run when it started shaking. I don't know if she made it out. Ryan's stomach dropped. He swept his flashlight across the void, searching desperately. And then he saw her, a child, maybe 10 years old, curled up in the far corner of the void, her arms wrapped around her knees, her face pale and streaked with tears and dust. She was alive, but she wasn't moving. Ryan's breath caught. Hey, sweetheart, I'm here to help. My name is Ryan, can you hear me? The girl's eyes opened slowly. They were unfocused, glassy. Shock. Can you tell me your name? Emma. The voice was barely a whisper. Okay, Emma. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you hurt? Emma nodded slowly. My arm. It hurts. Okay. I need you to stay very still. Can you do that for me? Another nod. Ryan keyed his radio. I've got 2 victims. Adult female, pinned under debris, suspected spinal injury. Child approximately 10 years old. Conscious but injured. I need extraction equipment and paramedics immediately. Static crackled. Then Captain Vasquez's voice. Equipment is 15 minutes out. Can you stabilize them? Affirmative. But we need to move fast. The structure's not stable. Copy. Hang tight, Mercer. Ryan looked at Copper. The dog had moved beside Emma, his body pressed against hers, providing warmth and comfort. The girl's uninjured hand had found its way into Copper's fur, gripping it like a lifeline. Ryan crawled toward Diana first, pulling off his jacket and folding it carefully. He positioned it under her head, supporting her neck. Diana, I need you to stay very still. Don't try to move. Help is coming. Emma, Diana's voice was fading. Is she? She's safe. She's right here. Your daughter is brave, Diana. So brave. Tears streamed down Diana's face. I tried to protect her. You did. You kept her alive. That's what matters. Ryan moved to Emma, kneeling beside her. Copper shifted slightly, giving him room but maintaining contact with the child. Ryan pulled out his flashlight, checking her pupils. Reactive. Good sign. Emma, I'm going to look at your arm, okay? I'll be very gentle. The girl nodded, her hand still buried in Copper's fur. Ryan carefully examined her arm. Swelling, possible fracture, but no visible bone breaks. He pulled a compression bandage from his kit, wrapping it carefully to immobilize the injury. You're doing great, Emma, so great. Do you like dogs? Emma's eyes focused slightly on Copper. Yeah, this is Copper. He's a rescue dog. He found you and your mom. He's pretty special. He's soft, Emma whispered. Ryan smiled despite everything. Yeah, he is. Minutes crawled by like hours. Ryan kept talking to both victims, monitoring their conditions, watching for signs of deterioration. Diana's breathing grew weaker. Emma's eyes kept drooping closed. Stay with me, Ryan said firmly. Both of you. Just a little longer. The structure groaned around them. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. Something shifted overhead, a grinding sound that made Ryan's heart stop. Copper's ears flattened. He pressed closer to Emma, his body covering hers protectively. Easy, buddy, Ryan whispered. Easy. And then, finally, the sound of machinery grew louder. Voices. Movement. A beam of light cut through the darkness. Mercer, we're coming in. Relief flooded through Ryan's body. Here, we're here. Hands reached through gaps. Faces appeared. Equipment was passed through. Hydraulic jacks, struts, medical supplies, backboards. The extraction took 45 minutes. They stabilized the structure first, placing struts and supports to prevent further collapse. Then they brought in the jacks, slowly lifting the concrete slab off Diana's legs. She screamed when feeling returned, a sound that meant nerve function was intact. Paramedics swarmed in, starting IVs, stabilizing spines, checking vitals. Diana was secured to a backboard and passed through the narrow opening, hand over hand, until she emerged into daylight. Emma was next. Ryan carried her himself, Copper leading the way through the twisting path back to the surface. When they emerged into daylight, Emma was crying, not from pain, from overwhelming relief. Paramedics took her from Ryan's arms, wrapping her in a blanket, examining her injuries. But she kept looking back, searching for something. Copper, she whispered. The dog was already there, pressing his nose against her hand. Emma's fingers tangled in his fur again, holding on tight. Good boy, she whispered. Good boy, Copper. Ryan stood back, watching as the paramedics loaded both mother and daughter into the ambulance. His body ached, his hands shook. Exhaustion crashed over him like a wave. But they were alive. Both of them were alive. Captain Vasquez appeared beside him, her hand on his shoulder. Hell of a job, Mercer. Ryan nodded, unable to speak. Sarah and Scout? Ryan's throat tightened. Yeah, they didn't make it. Vasquez's face darkened. She was quiet for a long moment. We'll bring them home. With honors. Yeah. They stood in silence, watching as the rescue operation continued around them. More teams were arriving. More equipment. The work was far from over. But in that moment, Ryan felt something shift inside him. The weight of loss. The joy of survival. The impossible balance that defined their work. He looked down at Copper. The dog sat beside him, covered in dust, panting hard, his amber eyes tired but alert. You did good, buddy, Ryan said softly. Really good. Copper's tail thumped once against the ground, and for the first time in 2 days, Ryan allowed himself to breathe. The woman survived. Diana Reeves spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Surgery on her legs, pins and rods to rebuild shattered bones, physical therapy, endless tests. The doctors said she'd walk again, but it would take time. Months. maybe years, but she survived, and so did Emma. The girl's arm healed quickly. Children's bones were resilient. The psychological scars would take longer, nightmares, anxiety, fear of enclosed spaces, but she had her mother, and she had hope. Ryan visited them twice during their hospital stay. The first time Diana was still weak, her voice hoarse, her eyes tired, but when she saw Copper, she smiled. It was a small smile, fragile, but real. "He found us," she said quietly. "When I couldn't even call out anymore, he found us." Ryan nodded, his throat tight. "He's good at that. I don't know how to thank you. Either of you. You don't have to. It's what we do." But Diana shook her head. "No, it's more than that. You didn't have to crawl into that space. You didn't have to risk your life, but you did, for strangers." Ryan didn't know what to say. He just reached down, scratching behind Copper's ears. The dog leaned into his touch, eyes half closed. "He's the real hero," Ryan said quietly. "I just follow where he leads." The second visit was different. Diana was sitting up, her daughter beside her, both of them smiling. Emma's arm was in a cast, covered in colorful signatures from hospital staff. She'd been drawing, pages and pages of pictures scattered across the hospital bed. When she saw Copper, her face lit up. "Copper!" She held up a piece of paper. "I drew this for you." Ryan took it carefully. It was a crayon sketch of a dog with rust-colored fur and amber eyes sitting beside a little girl. Above them, Emma had written in careful letters, "My hero." Ryan's vision blurred. This is beautiful, Emma. Thank you. Can I pet him?" "Of course." Emma reached out, her small hand resting on Copper's head. The dog leaned into her touch, his tail wagging slowly, his eyes soft and gentle. "I told everyone at school about you," Emma said to the dog. "About how you found us. About how you stayed with me when I was scared." Copper's tail wagged faster. "He remembers you," Ryan said. Emma grinned. "Really? Really? Dogs never forget the people they rescue." Diana watched from the bed, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You gave us our lives back, both of you. I'll never forget that." Ryan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. They visited for another hour, talking about recovery, about plans for when Diana could go home, about the therapy Emma would need. But mostly they just sat together, 3 people and 1 dog, bound by a moment of crisis that had changed everything. When Ryan and Copper finally left, Emma called after them. "Will I see him again?" Ryan turned back, smiling. "Anytime you want. Station 19, just ask for Copper." Emma's grin could have lit up the entire hospital. Back at the station, life returned to a fragile kind of normal. The earthquake had left scars on the city, on the crew, on Ryan himself. Station 19 held a memorial service for Sarah Chen and Scout. The entire department attended. People spoke about Sarah's dedication, her quiet strength, her love for her dog. A plaque was mounted in the station, bearing both their names. Ryan stood in front of it often, Copper at his side, thinking about what they'd lost and what they'd saved. The earthquake had taken lives, but it had also revealed something profound about courage and sacrifice, about the bond between handlers and their dogs, about the lengths people would go to protect each other. Copper seemed different after the rescue, quieter, more thoughtful. Ryan noticed it during drills. The dog would pause sometimes, his nose lifted toward the sky as if he could smell something no one else could. He would sit beside Ryan in the evenings, his head resting on Ryan's knee, his eyes distant and reflective. "What are you thinking about, buddy?" Ryan asked one night, scratching behind Copper's ears. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. Ryan smiled. "Yeah, me too." A month after the earthquake, the department held a ceremony. Awards were given, speeches were made. Families thanked rescuers. The press took photos. Ryan stood on the platform, Copper at his side, and accepted a commendation for bravery. They pinned a medal to his uniform. They shook his hand. They called him a hero. But when he looked down at Copper, the dog wasn't looking at the crowd or the cameras or the officials. He was looking at Ryan, and in those amber eyes, Ryan saw something he'd always known, but never fully understood. Loyalty, trust, love. Copper didn't rescue people because he was trained to. He didn't search through rubble because it was his job. He did it because he cared, because somewhere in his canine heart, he understood that lives mattered, that suffering should be stopped, that being strong meant helping the weak, and that made all the difference. Ryan knelt down, wrapping his arms around the dog's shoulders, burying his face in the warm fur. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Copper's tail wagged, once, twice, a steady rhythm that said everything words couldn't. The city rebuilt, slowly, painfully, but it rebuilt. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen. Families moved back into their homes. Children played in parks that had been closed for months. Scars remained, cracked foundations, patched walls, empty lots where structures once stood. But life went on. It always did. Ryan and Copper returned to their routine. Drills, calls, rescues. Some days were quiet, others were chaos. But they faced them together as they always had. 6 months after the earthquake, Ryan received a letter. It was from Emma. Inside was another drawing, this one showing a firefighter and a dog standing on top of a pile of rubble, the sun rising behind them. Beneath the image, in neater handwriting now, Emma had written, "Thank you for showing me that heroes are real. I want to be one too someday. Maybe I'll have a dog like Copper. Maybe I'll help people like you helped me. Thank you for not giving up. Love, Emma." Ryan hung the drawing in his locker at the station, where he could see it every day. One evening, as the sun set over Riverside, Ryan sat on the back steps of the station, a cup of coffee in his hand. Copper lay beside him, his head resting on Ryan's boot, his eyes half closed in contentment. The world was still, peaceful. The sky blazed with color, orange and pink and gold, painting the clouds like fire. Birds called from nearby trees. A gentle breeze carried the scent of eucalyptus and grass. Ryan thought about the people they'd saved, about Sarah and Scout, who'd paid the ultimate price, about Diana and Emma, who'd been given a second chance, about all the lives that intersected in moments of crisis and emerged forever changed. "You know what, Copper?" Ryan said quietly. "I used to think this job was about being strong, about being fearless, about knowing what to do when everything falls apart." Copper's ear twitched, but he didn't open his eyes. "But it's not. It's about showing up, about refusing to quit, about caring enough to risk everything, even when you're terrified." Ryan paused, his hand resting on Copper's back. The dog's breathing was slow and steady, peaceful. "You taught me that. You and every other search dog who's ever worn a vest. You don't do this for medals or recognition. You do it because you love, because you're loyal, because when someone needs help, you answer. No matter what." Copper sighed, a deep, contented sound. Ryan smiled, scratching behind the dog's ear. "Yeah, I know. I'm getting philosophical in my old age." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deeper shades of purple and blue. Stars began to appear one by one, pinpricks of light in the gathering darkness. Ryan drained the last of his coffee, set the cup aside, and rested his hand on Copper's head. The dog's fur was warm and soft beneath his palm. "Thank you," Ryan whispered, "for everything." Copper's tail thumped against the concrete, once, twice, 3 times, and in that simple gesture, Ryan heard what the dog couldn't say in words. "I'll always be here, no matter what. We're partners, we're family, and nothing, not earthquakes, not darkness, not fear, will ever change that." Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the day lift from his shoulders. Tomorrow would bring new calls, new crises, new lives to save. But tonight, in this quiet moment, he could rest. Because he wasn't alone, he never had been. Heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they walk on 4 paws. Sometimes they dig when no one else will. Sometimes they refuse to give up, even when the world has fallen apart around them. Because love and loyalty aren't just instincts, they're choices. And in the wreckage of disaster, in the darkness of despair, those choices can change everything. Copper had chosen to dig, to search, to save. And in doing so, he had reminded Ryan, and everyone whose life he touched, what it truly meant to be a hero. Not fearless, not invincible, just present, just committed, just there. Ryan opened his eyes, looking up at the stars now fully visible in the night sky, each one a point of light in the vastness, each one separate, yet part of something greater, like the bond between a handler and his dog, like the connection between rescuer and rescued, like the thread of hope that runs through humanity, binding us all together in moments of crisis and triumph. Ryan stood, stretching his tired muscles. Copper rose with him, shaking dust from his coat, ready for whatever came next. Together they walked back into the station, back to their family, back to the work that defined them. And somewhere in the city, a little girl named Emma looked at a drawing on her wall, a firefighter and a dog standing against impossible odds, and dreamed of the day when she too would be strong enough to help others. Because that's what heroes do. They inspire, they endure, they save lives, and sometimes when the world needs it most, They remind us all what really matters. Not power, not glory, just love, and the courage to show up when it counts.